Hello and welcome back to another episode. So if you remember, we ended last episode with creating a day-night cycle, and we even gave it a little color change so that you could feel the cold temperature at night and it would feel a little bit warmer during the day. Now I want to keep going with that sort of direction of changing the environment to also work on weather. Right now, I kind of want to look into making rain work, and then I also want to tie it into the lighting we have into this game to maybe change the color and even the light level whenever it's raining, and then change it back when it's not raining. I actually have no idea how I'm going to implement this. I have done this before in Unity. If you go back 2 episodes, the first one for this year, I did a little intro where I'm actually outside and you see the logo for the game. The rain that you see going over that logo was actually built in Unity by me, but it's not very efficient. It's literally objects with rain particle images plastered on them that is falling from the sky. But it does give me the idea because that system actually supported me changing the angle of the rain and how much was coming down. So whatever direction I go, I want to make sure that I can actually change those variables, easily make it windier or a bigger rainstorm. Again, though, I don't know how to do this properly. That was a quick and dirty effect that I wanted for my video. So I'm just going to do a little research now and see what I can come up with, and then I'll come back to you and let you know what I'm going to work on. Okay, after spending, obviously, an incredibly long time doing some research on this problem, I've decided that particle systems is gonna be the way to go. Now, this isn't surprising. I kind of expected this. Particle systems is essentially a way of giving something, how do we describe it? So a particle system is just a bunch of points, basically. So instead of a 3-dimensional shape that is made up of a bunch of points connected with surfaces, a particle in game development or graphics is just a single point. So it's defined essentially by a position. And then you can simply put a 2D image in that position. And it's a really light way of rendering something that doesn't have to be 3-dimensional, but can move around in either 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional space. And because it's lightweight, you can have tons of them. Unlike the example I had previously with that rain system I did for my video, it wasn't very kind to the computer. It was a lot of geometry. Particle system doesn't have that problem. It's just points. So I can do a whole lot with it. And if I remember correctly, I haven't done it in a while, but particle systems in Unity have a million different settings. So I may be able to solve this without any code at all. We'll see. I don't like spending a lot of time on research when I've got the software right here, and I'm at least capable in this software. I mean, I'm no pro, but I've been doing Unity for a while. So I'm just going to hop in, play around with it, and start figuring out what questions I should even be asking and seeing if particle system is the way to go. Let's get into it. Alright, been playing around with the particle system for a little while, and this is what I've gotten so far. Again, this is the first day, I just started this, but already I think it looks pretty good. Now, I don't know how well the rain is going to show up on with YouTube compression, but now that it's gotten up to the morning, you can kind of see it a little better, and you may notice that the droplets are actually what look like hitting the ground, splashing, and going away. Again, YouTube compression may not really be showing that super well, but that's kind of what they're doing. They're not just falling over the screen, but they're actually what looks like hitting the ground, splashing, and stopping. Now, how this works, it's really simple so far. Essentially, I just have an emitter that's emitting particles above the screen, and this follows the camera around. And, oh yeah, if I move down, you can see, because the particles look like they're moving slower. And they all fall down, but they all spawn from the same place, but they last for different lengths. So some of them don't last all the way to the bottom of the screen. They disappear before then, which gives it the appearance that it's actually hitting the ground higher up, so it's like further away from the camera. And then also I just have it so that as it gets closer to the end of its life, the raindrop changes to different images, and that's what the splashing animation is. This is hard to see, though, why this is a problem. Essentially what this means, because I'm changing the picture of the raindrop as it goes through its life cycle, it's not actually ever slowing down. It's not hitting the ground and then splashing away as it's hit the ground. It's basically falling and then splashing and then disappearing. So that's not how rain works. It's supposed to be hitting the ground, and you can kind of notice it as I'm walking down. You can see the rain, even when it goes through its splash, it's still falling down, which isn't great. I don't know if Unity's particle system handles this. I did notice when I was going through the massive amount of settings that exist here, and this is just like a small fraction of all the options you have with the particle systems. I did notice that there is a custom data option, and I'm not really sure what this is. This may help me. I am willing to just create my own particle system. I had to do my own animation system for my custom doors, you remember way back when I started working on that. And I'm fine doing the same thing with this. If I've got to make it so that particles, they last a certain length, then their velocity stops at a certain period, and then they go through an animation, it would give me all the customization in the world. And maybe it'd be a particle system I could work on for other particles. Games are full of these kind of systems. Smoke clouds, ember emitters, magic effects, rain and snow, everything like that doesn't really need to be a physical object. But I think I'm going to have to think about this for a little while, and honestly, I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more research than the massive amount I did earlier, just to see what this particle system in Unity is capable of. Alright, it's a couple days later, and I have made some good progress, so I'm just going to jump in and show you what I've done. First of all, I've made it so that the day-night cycle can be toggled off for my tests, and look at that! Doesn't that look great? Yeah, so I didn't have to recreate the particle system or anything. This is all built in within the particle system that Unity comes with, which I'm really grateful for because it means there's very little code that I had to do to make this work. Essentially none at all. And I think it looks really good. It really gives the effect that the water is falling down and splashing on the ground. It feels like it's got some weight to it, and it's not just an effect scrolling by the screen. Now, how this actually works is if I pull out of here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the effect so that we can actually see it in action. If I can find it. Oh, right. I put it under the camera because I want the effect to actually follow the camera. So you can see it right here, and if I go ahead and play, you'll notice on the top screen the effect follows the camera wherever it goes. It's not raining anywhere else, it's just raining wherever the camera is, which is where the player is. And I do that just to save on particles. Particle systems are pretty cheap if you want a lot of different things in the scene happening at once, like this, but they can get expensive if you go too crazy with it. So if I have too many particles, then it can slow it down a whole lot. And actually, how this works is it's basically two different particle systems. You've got the rain falling down, and then you've got what is called a sub-emitter in Unity, which basically, think of it like a particle that happens from a particle. So I think the best example of this would be a firework. If you're creating a firework with particle systems, you first have the particle that is going up into the sky, and then once that ends, then you have a particle system of just an explosion of particles at the top. So those would be two different particle systems, but they're tied to each other. You want one happening based on where the other one happened, its trajectory, its angle, its timing, and everything. That's what a sub-emitter is for. These particles are emitting another particle, which is just the little splash right there. And I will also mention, if you're ever doing this yourself, there's only two particle systems involved here. It's not like a particle system for each drop. It's just two systems, one for the splashes and one for the rain. If any of you want me to go into a tutorial on this, because I don't really think there is one for this kind of effect that I've seen in Unity, but if any of you want me to go into an in-depth tutorial on how to actually make this, leave a comment below and I'll do something hopefully pretty soon to help you guys out there, because I really like the look of this. Also, I will mention, it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to maximize it as well. but I have made it so that the splashes are affected by the angle of the rain. So let's say we look sort of in this area, you'll notice that the splashes are splashing to the right. And if I change the angle of the rain, say to the left, let's go ahead and do that. I'm figuring my way around here. It takes me a while. Then you'll notice that the splashes, they're still splashing the wrong direction. I think I disabled that code. Whoopsies. But in theory, they would splash to the other direction. And I think I want to go this direction so that the splashes are dynamic based on the wind. But as you've noticed for my implementation, if I change the direction of the wind, then the splashes on the ground themselves move, which is not ideal. And I imagine there's probably a way to fix it. I'm not aware of it right now, and I really would like to be able to play around with wind, have the wind slow down and speed up like gusts during a big storm. But if I do that while it's raining, then you're going to see splashes moving. So I'm going to have to address that at some point. That's just going too far into the weeds for what I'm trying to accomplish here. The next thing I want to get done, and I want to get this done before I release this video, is I want to tie this together with the day-night cycle and also basically have an effect on the lighting, which pairs with the day-night cycle. And then also I'm probably going to add to the heads-up display to make this mechanic, this rain mechanic, a little simpler for the player. But you'll see what I mean by that in just a second when I complete it. And with the power of editing, the weather system is complete, or the base system is complete, and hooked up to the day-night cycle. So let me just go ahead and play and show you what I've got right now. So you'll see that I've updated the UI, and now up in the top left corner, we have the forecast and the current weather. And you can see it was nighttime. Now, as the rain comes in, it starts actually raining. And you could also tell that it got a little darker. It's kind of hard to tell when there's a transition period. I have everything sped up right now, the weather system changing and the day-night cycle changing. So it's a bit hectic right now, but you can get the basic idea. It's raining a whole lot. Let's go ahead and wait to see if we get a little bit of sun. No, it's still raining. I will say, while this is happening, right now, whether it's raining or not is just random. So it's a 50-50 toss-up if it's going to rain in the next section or if it's not going to rain. And each section is a different length of time, so there's a little bit of variation there. And you can see right there, also, the sun was about to come, but then it was getting to evening. I have to actually make that transition because the forecast is not necessarily lined up with the times of day. So it's not like it's going to be sunny for the entire early morning and then it's going to be raining for the entire late morning. It's a certain, they're not connected in that sense. So it could rain for an entire day. One of those segments could be an entire day, and then it could be sunny for just the afternoon or half the afternoon. And so when I'm rendering the next forecast, I don't really know if it's going to be early night or day. And so basically sometimes you'll see the sun be replaced by the moon or the moon replaced by the sun up in that top left corner. Now in the future, you're never going to have rain on rain on rain, I don't think. I think the forecast is simply going to tell you the next thing is rain, and it's going to move really slowly if it's going to be a long time of rain. So all you're going to be seeing, you're not going to be seeing things multiple times in a row. You're just going to see the transitions, what the weather is right now and what's coming up. And probably if it's sunny for a long time, then it's going to be a while before you actually see what the next weather is, because, as it would be realistic, the player's not actually going to know if it's going to be sunny all day. They're not going to see a storm coming if there's not a cloud in the sky, regardless if it's going to rain tomorrow. So I really like this. I just think it looks really good. Again, there's clearly a lot more that I need to do. I need to add different weather patterns. I need to make it not just random, but I think it's great groundwork, and the UI system makes it a whole lot more realistic. Pause. Did I just say in that clip that I added a UI to make the game more realistic? Isn't it true that user interfaces and heads-up displays actually make games less realistic? After all, we don't have UIs or heads-up displays in front of our face as we go about our real day, so how could a video game be more realistic with one? And come to think of it, most games that have a realism mode that I can think of actually remove the entirety of the heads-up display as a starting point. But I will say it is possible for a user interface to not decrease the realism of a game. And I'll also argue that user interfaces and heads-up displays' primary purpose is to make the game more realistic. Let me explain. Let's consider for a second a shooter game. Now this, mind you, is a very realistic shooter game, so it's going to be first-person view, and it matters if the player is shot in their leg versus their arm versus anywhere on their body. Also, to make it even more realistic, there's different levels of severity of shots that the player needs to be aware of. Now, how, in a first-person, realistic game, is the player going to have this information? In the real world, most of the time, you would know pretty quickly if you were shot, where you were shot, and, after just a short second, how badly it was. But how does a player in a first-person video game know that? There's not many options, and the best one is a heads-up display. Something on the screen that wouldn't be there in the real world that's filling in the gaps of what physical touch and knowledge of your own body would actually play the role in a real shootout. So this is just one example of where a user interface is being used to supplement something that the video game cannot actually provide in a more realistic way. It's actually more realistic to have a user interface telling the player that they were shot critically in their leg than to have the player confused and uncertain if they were shot at all. I want my game to be realistic, but as a game developer, I can't just be asking myself what would make a realistic weather system, but instead, how would a weather system relate to a player or person in a situation where the camera never looks at the sky? That's what I'm trying to solve, and that's exactly how a user interface can make a situation like mine even more realistic. I hope I didn't bore you too much with my little spiel about realism in games, but I consider it to be in the same genre of the Doors talk I gave many episodes back. I'm just trying to give you a taste of how complicated it can be to solve some of these problems in game development, and how it can border on philosophical on topics such as how to make a game more realistic. Sometimes it doesn't always come through in the end product, and some fantastic video games are fantastic because they've properly looked into these problems. It's not just writing a bunch of code and making a bunch of art, but it's solving difficult questions and trying to never lose sight of what you're actually trying to create with the video game in question. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode. I'm really happy what I've accomplished now, and I would say that as far as a first version, the weather system and the day-night cycle are complete for now, maybe for this year. I can't wait to move on to whatever is next. I got to go over to the Trello board and look into what I want to work on, but either way, that's going to do it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, please give it a like. That would be great, and I will see you in the next one.